Welcome to my channel, Hinterlife Homeschool. I homeschool my two beautiful children, 10 and 7, and we have this wonderful homeschooling lifestyle. It is not all fun and games. We have our days and we have had to learn a lot along the way. I am so happy to be sharing with you what I have learned so far and what I am in the process of learning as well. And just in general, just sharing our everyday life and the challenges that comes with owning a business, a startup business. I am the creator of Freely Homeschool Planner App, and juggling that and working on that, as well as homeschooling my children and trying to balance it all. And I've learned so many things from YouTube homeschooling families. So I felt like it was almost a way of giving back by putting out our family's activities and the way that we homeschool and what we've learned, because it is very different to a lot of other homeschoolers as well. We all have our different ways of doing things. And I think it's just really important, the more we share about different dynamics in family and extra needs and juggling businesses and sharing that it's really hard too, and being open about those challenges. I think the more we understand that it is a struggle for everybody, not just you or not just me. And the more we talk about that, the less we feel like we're doing it wrong. So that is why I've created this channel. I will be sharing my business as well, how I go about juggling that, because that is literally what I'm trying to learn at the moment in this very space and time, is trying to manage a business and not take away from our homeschool as well, and keeping on top of all the other dinner and cleaning and cooking and meal planning and grocery lists and all of the things. Certainly not great at everything, and it is a juggle. This video is a snapshot or a run through of how I collaborate with my two children on our vision for our homeschool and our goals. This is my way of connecting with my kids and including them in having some control over their education. Some don't agree with this approach, and I want you to understand that everyone is different and that is okay. We all want what's best for our children, and this approach is what works best for us. And what works best for you is going to look different for you. But by sharing what I have found works best and how I can have my kids engaged in what they're learning and really truly retaining that information, because they're learning about things that they're actually interested in, that is what works best for me. That is what brings the most joy to me. So by sharing that, I feel like it allows you permission, or it might give you inspiration for following that journey with your children too, because it can feel a little bit scary by doing that, because we're fed all this information about how education looks a certain way, and that it has always been the authoritative, do as I say, not as I do type attitude. And that is not always the right way. I don't believe that is the right way at all. But as I've gone through this homeschooling journey, I've gotten more and more sure of that. And at first it can be a little bit scary stepping away from that thought process, because it feels scary giving control to our kids, thinking that maybe they're just going to say, I want to have fun all the time. They can have fun all the time. That is not what we're told, though. That is not what we're led to believe. They can't be having fun, because that means that they're not learning and they're just being silly. And that's what I have been told and led to believe in my schooling, and then also the kind of society and subconscious messaging and all of that sort of stuff. It gets in the way of us actually connecting with our kids. And the truth is that kids are always learning. There is no set start to learn and start and finish learning and go and play and they don't retain any of that information. That is absolute. We've already established that. Like that is such old school thinking. But I hear it today, and it's frustrating. So I just wanted to put my thoughts out there and show you the way that it works for us. And I cannot tell you how enjoyable it is to just sit down with my kids and talk about things that they're interested in. The first step that I take in preparing goals with my kids in our homeschool is actually by starting off with a vision. So that is my overarching kind of go-to when creating goals or choosing curriculum. I come back to that, and that is kind of like our moral for the year. It's our focus. It is our mantra, I suppose. It's basically a couple of sentences that bring to you the essence of why you're homeschooling, what you're homeschooling for, and what you want to achieve. It looks different for everybody, and I don't want to make you think that it has to be like mine. It can be whatever you want it to be and what is important to you and your kids. We have decided on our vision to be to grow a connection and appreciation for the outdoors. We feel better outdoors. We want to create that resilience for our children. We want to teach them that there is so much to gain from being amongst the outdoors. The next step that we have is the initial goal setting. So what I like to do is actually sit down with my children, and sometimes Dad gets involved with this as well, but he was working, so we just sat down and I asked the kids what they would like to learn more of and what things that they liked from the last term and what they have enjoyed, what they haven't enjoyed. Do they want to do more sit down work at the table? Do they want to do outdoor work? What kind of things that they wanted to do? And that is like an open book. They can speak completely freely. It is fun. We joke, we be silly, we high five, we have a blast just chatting all the things that we're passionate about. And while they're chatting, I jot down some key words, and it's a mess. It's just all dumped down on the paper. And I just absorb I make notes of what they are really passionate about, and their eyes light up, and like they can really surprise me sometimes. Sometimes it's not what I expect, but overall 90% of what they described that they would like to do or learn more about were animals, nature-based learning. And the first thing that they said that they wanted to learn, and I actually said that I wanted to learn something. I always like to share that I'm wanting to learn something too. So I try to do, I guess it's like an icebreaker, but it gets them, their creative juices flowing as well. So what I did was I said, I really want to learn more about chickens, because I actually do. I want to know the ins and outs of all things chickens, because I'm kind of obsessed, just like my son as well. We share that obsession of just loving our little chicks that we have gotten, and we have some silkies that we're completely obsessed over, and we spend our days just pampering them and, giving them treats and making sure they're comfortable, and it is a really great way to get outside. Of course, I said what I want to learn more about is chickens. So and then Isaac piped up, yes, me too. I want to learn about, how does the chicken go broody? How do they lay an egg, and how does the baby grow in the egg, and all of those interesting questions that will just send us down rabbit trails. So I'm going to dedicate a portion of time to finding some really great content for us. It's maybe even some experiments with eggs. There is just so much stuff, and I will use various platforms for that, finding that. So that is one suggestion. And then Riley said, I want to learn about bees, because we've been kind of talking, we haven't actually covered bees yet. We've covered a lot of things, but we haven't covered bees yet. And that's because I actually want to get a native bee set up going in our backyard. So I've been kind of waiting for the right time to do that. So yeah, there's just so much there that we discussed, and it's gold. I love it, and I'm beaming from it, and I feel inspired, and they feel inspired. And we don't just talk about things that we want to learn, we also talk about resources that we might want to experiment with as well. So Isaac suggested that we get some magnet tiles and we start investigating magnets. That is something that I said that, you know, we could learn, and he came up with that idea. Then Riley said, well, why don't we get some magnet tiles that have, you know, cars, and we can create cities and all that sort of stuff as well. So all of that has been suggested. Some ways to help movement and feeling. My kids can struggle sometimes with the needing to move when they're learning, and that can really annoy them sometimes, where they're trying to focus on something that they want to do, and they need to move. So Isaac's asked for like a kinder board, and to get that stimming out of his system and things like that. So that is another suggestion, and I agree with all of those things that they've suggested. They're really practical, really helpful items that I have already kind of been thinking about including in our homeschool. I love that they've come to the table and decided, you know, this is what we need for our homeschool. This will help me because of this reason. And then we talk about, you know, how we can work that into our homeschool and why it would be helpful. And we make a list, and then we will come back to that list after I've discovered like how much things are, whether they're part of our budget, and you know, what unit studies or various learning things that we can do to learn more about the things that they've suggested. And we go over that as a final kind of run through for our goals. Okay, so we've already talked about creating that vision for your homeschool and how I create that vision for our homeschool. And we've talked about starting the process of having that discussion about interests and things that, you know, the children might want in the homeschool and things like that, and that beginning of goal setting. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually the way you go about wording your goals. I think the most important thing with goal setting is making sure that you're not focused on making that goal closed. And by that I mean, for example, I want my son to memorize all of his times tables by the end of the year. Okay, so that is setting us up for, you know, we're either going to succeed or we're not going to succeed. And that's putting a lot of pressure on everybody in having that. And there are elements there that I can't really control. It's, you know, how is his memory retention? How can he possibly do that if I haven't set a goal to actually practice that daily? So a better goal would actually be, I could talk to my son about ways in which he would want to memorize those multiplications. Would he want to possibly learn some songs, or is he interested more in the repetition with those times tables? So there are so many ways that you can work towards an kind of an outcome without it being outcome focused. So we can't really control whether they're going to smash that goal if we're setting it up in a way that they have to have that success, that outcome being achieved. And I think that the great thing here is when we're talking about goals and the opportunity to teach our kids, I see it as an opportunity to teach my kids that, you know, the way in which we word our goals can either uplift us or they can make us feel like we've failed. And the way in which I want to word the goals for my kids is by giving them things that they can do to work towards whatever outcome they might be wanting to achieve. And if they don't achieve that outcome, they've still achieved their goal because their goal was to work towards it. For example, one of the goals that we might have set for our homeschool is that we want to have a almost self-sufficient suburban farm by the end of the year. That is something that we're super passionate about. We really, really love growing our own vegetables. But by setting a goal, we want a self-sufficient suburban farm by the end of the year. That's not really going to help us achieve that. We're focusing on the end outcome rather than how we can actually achieve that. A better goal, a better wording for the goal would be, in fact, every day we're going to spend 15 minutes observing our vegetable garden and working out what we need for it. Does it need water? Does it need, more compost? Or what does it need? And in order for it to thrive so that we can have the garden of our dreams by the end of the year. So we have so much to learn for this, by the way. So there is just going to be so many things that we can learn throughout the year to achieve that. But if we were just focusing on that goal of just the end outcome, we're already setting ourselves up for failure, in my opinion, because it's not giving us that reflection time, like when we get to the middle of the year and we're looking back and going, what have we achieved? What are we, how are our goals going? And are we on our way halfway to our goal? We would be wanting or expecting, a very well developed garden, right? And we would have already known what we need to plant for the next season, blah, blah, blah. How can we do that? By setting ourselves some goals that actually make us accountable to be checking in every day, researching that information, spending the 15 minutes researching what we need to be, picking, what we need to be planting, what we need to be cultivating, all of those things that are associated with having a successful veggie garden. So there's so much to that goal, and making it more open and associated with, prompts of daily thought process and daily reflection on where we're heading towards that goal is going to help us achieve that. This has been something that I have learned over the last couple of years. This is not just something that I just dreamt up overnight. I have heard these kinds of talks from lots of different homeschoolers about goals, and I've just taken bits and pieces, and this is what works for our family. This is what sets me up to support my kids to achieve these big dreams that they have. And it's amazing. It's an amazing way to feel like we have a vision and goal for our learning, and it's not closed. It's open to add more things into, and we do go down rabbit trails, and sometimes those things just become huge and we have to drop some of the others, and we reassess that throughout the year. We certainly try to keep things not too overwhelming, because passions grow and things become bigger and bigger and bigger, just like our chicken coop. But that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? Like, that is what I think homeschooling is all about, is by growing those passions, they get to know a little bit more about themselves. Heck, I'm getting to know a little bit more about myself. So it's a journey that we get to go on together. And I think that is just a beautiful experience to have.